In this class we're going to look at the decision-making process. This is quite a practical and straightforward class related to the decision-making process within companies. The decision-making process, this is an important process for an organization, and effective decisions determine the success of the organization. If the managers are making bad decisions, then the business is not going to prosper. The business is not going to do well. So it's important that business decisions are well-founded, based on widely collected data which has been processed into good information, which forms the knowledge base of the business, which enables the decision maker to make good and informed decisions. Companies make decisions on a daily basis. They could be operational decisions about the day-to-day running of the business, or there could be long-term strategic decisions. Operational decisions are typically very short-term, about for example, the quantity of stock held, or the way current production is organized, or who's doing what, or perhaps solving a problem because someone is away ill or away on holiday. Or there could be long-term strategic decisions about the type of products that the company produces, the type of technology it uses, where it's located, what are its training needs. So different types of decisions in different time periods. Organizations use many tools and techniques to help them make corporate decisions. And we'll look at one of these. Unfortunately, the title of the model is not pronounceable. It's POGADSCIE, and that's the model. I suppose in the sense that it's a long word and not easy to pronounce, makes it memorable. So that's about the only thing I can say about the word itself. But the model is very useful, and it will form the basis for the rest of this session. So we start by, first of all, identifying a problem. So there must be a problem, and it must be identified for us to have decision making. Of course, decision making could be related to an opportunity, but we're going to just focus in on the problem side in this session. The opportunity side will be dealt with in other videos. But for the moment, we need to identify the problem. What is the problem? Because if we don't identify the problem, in a sense, the problem does not exist to us. So we will not take action to deal with it. And we need to identify the objectives for a solution. So how does the business identify what is the solution, and why do we need to solve the problem? Is the problem pressing? Is it a big problem or a little problem? Is one that can be resolved easily, or will it take resources and time? We need to identify the objectives of a solution. What is a good solution? What are we trying to do? And then, of course, we need to gather information. I think rather than say gather information, it might be better to say gather data, because the initial process is to gather the data, and the data then can be analyzed into information. It can be processed into information. So I would change the word gather information into gather data. It may be a better way of expressing this. And analyze the information. Analyze the data to get, I should say, information. And having got the information, then we devise possible solutions. We've got information now about the problem, so now we can look at various possible solutions. There may only be one, or there might be many possible solutions. It's now possible, however, to look at the information and decide what are the the solutions that are available and select from the possible solutions. Select one of the solutions, and having selected it, then communicate the decision. Tell people what the decision is, and tell the workers and the managers and anybody involved, the customers, whoever it is, tell the stakeholders, in other words, what the solution is, what the selected solution is, and in this way there will be no surprises when it's been implemented. And that's the next part, to then plan and implement the solution. The solution has been selected from possible solutions. So part D was to devise possible solutions. S, select the one. Now it's been communicated to the relevant stakeholders, and now it's possible to implement it. And then to evaluate the effectiveness of the solution. So those are the various steps in looking at decision making within a business as per this model. Now let's go across each of these very briefly in turn, starting with the first one, identify the problem. Well, decision making arises when there is a problem or an opportunity. That's the first thing to note. Problems need addressing. Problems need solution. So decision making involves focusing in on a problem and trying to resolve the problem, trying to fix it. Or it could be decision making is required because an opportunity has arisen within the market. Perhaps customer tastes have changed, and perhaps new opportunities have arisen as a consequence, and again decisions have to be made as to whether to produce a new product or engage in new technology or retrain the workforce or whatever. So decisions have to be made because of, first of all, problems, or secondly, opportunities. Now in this session I will mostly focus in on problems. Opportunities arise in other videos in the course. A problem occurs when an organization is failing to meet its goals. It's underperforming. Now, organizations can only underperform if they are benchmarked against some standard. The standard may be set in the broad mission of the business, or in the corporate plan, or it may be benchmarked against competitors. It's not always easy to get information about the competitors' performances, but just a review of their performance in the marketplace and how well they appear to be doing may be an indicator of how well the business is doing itself. So it's looking at meeting the goals it's set itself and ensuring that it's not underperforming. Opportunities, as I said, will be dealt with in other videos in various modules, as well as in this module. However, when there is an opportunity, when there is potential for the business to exploit that opportunity, they expand their goals, they expand what they want to do, and decisions have to be made as to how much to invest, or set up a new production line, or buy in additional components, or retrain the workforce, take on extra personnel, retrain the managers, restructure the organizational chart of the business. Many decisions have to be made if opportunities are perceived. So the decision-making opportunity, or decision-making process, I should say, starts with an opportunity or a problem, and when those are identified, decision-making follows from there. Organizations scan their internal and external environments to identify current underperformance. And as I said, underperformance is a relative term. Underperformance compared to what? Compared to the business plan, compared to what the organization wanted to achieve, or by benchmarking against competitors. How well or how poorly is it doing against competitors, if that information can be acquired. So they can scan their internal and external environments using techniques such as SWOT and PESTEL. And I'll talk about those later in a slide. But for the moment, the organization should constantly review their internal and external environments to identify problems and opportunities. Organizations must consider the following. What's the current problem or opportunity? So what is the current problem? Is there a problem? What is it? What's the opportunity? So they should be aware of what's happening to them internally and what's happening in the market. And if there is a problem or opportunity, how will it affect the organization's development? Can the organization exploit the opportunity or fix the problem? Perhaps it can't. So there are various issues associated with the identification of a problem or opportunity. Next, the organization needs to know who will be affected by the decision. Who precisely will be affected? Which parts of the organization will be affected? And will the customers, the existing customers, be affected? Will suppliers be affected? Which managers will be affected? And how will it affect the morale of the workers within the business? And is there a deadline for the solution to be implemented? If there's a problem, how urgent is the problem? Is it one that can be left for a while and dealt with when work is slack, when there's less work going on? Or does it have to be dealt with straight away? And if it's an opportunity, how fast should the organization, should the business attempt to exploit the opportunity? How fast should they get the product to market to capitalize on the trend? So is there a deadline for the solution? Now, identifying the objectives for a solution. Well, once a problem or opportunity has been identified, there needs to be a structure in place to overcome the problem. As I said, I'm going to focus in on the problem more so in this session. So there needs to be a structure in place to overcome the problem. It's not just good enough to identify the problem, it needs to be fixed, and that may mean restructuring the business in a way that enables it to address the problem. The management need to identify the objectives for a solution and this begins with setting objectives for departments and employees. If there is a problem, where does the root of the problem exist? Is it within a particular department? Is it with a particular manager? Does the manager need extra training? Or is the task assigned to that manager simply beyond the manager's ability? Do the workers need more training? Is there a piece of technology that will help to resolve the problem? So it's important to set objectives for the departments and for the employees. The objectives must be SMART and communicated effectively throughout the organization. SMART is an anagram that crops up a lot in management, business and management education. It's specific, measurable, achievable, realistic and time-bound. And it's covered in many other videos. But essentially the objectives should be SMART. They should be specific to the problem. The problem needs to be fixed, then that particular problem needs to be fixed. It needs to be specific. The solution that's offered should be measurable. Is the solution effective? And how do you know if it is effective? So it must be measurable. There must be a difference before the solution was put in place and after the solution has been put in place, and that must be a measurable gap. And the solution to the problem must be achievable. It must be a problem that can be fixed. Sometimes problems simply cannot be fixed. And the solution also should be realistic. It should not ask more of the workers than they are capable of delivering. And there should be a time scale set so that the management know if the problem was fixed. Now, gathering data, as I said, I've got it down here as gathering information, but on reflection it may be better to consider it as gathering data. First of all, problems affect stakeholders. The stakeholders could be the workers, the managers, it could be the suppliers, it could be the customers, it could be the local community. So when a problem or opportunity arises, it's not confined to one small section. Generally speaking, it may affect a wide set of stakeholders. When an issue arises, management needs to research various methods of resolving it. There's no point in just looking at one possible solution. Look at a wide variety of solutions to pick the best one. Don't just focus in on one possible solution and try it and perhaps find it fails. If it fails, there is an issue, there is a problem. There's no follow-up or backup situation. So it's necessary to have a variety of solutions to a problem in case one fails. And it's important to know what were the causes of the problem and who will be most affected if the problem is not dealt with. It may be the business is most affected, profitability is most affected, or it could be certain sets of workers are most affected. And then look at what processes or tools or people will be needed to address the issue, and what are the limitations in the decision-making process. So having identified a problem, look at various solutions to the problem, not just one, if possible, and then look at who's most affected by the problem, and then look at what processes or tools or people will be needed to fix the problem. How can the problem be addressed? So that's the data gathering part. Now analyze the data to make it into information. And then analyze the information. So managers must analyze the information collected and assess its usefulness for the decision-making process. So the managers now look at the data, process the data into information, and see what can be done to fix the problem. Look at the usefulness of the information to try and resolve the problem. And this is going to feed into the decision-making process. The information must be reliable and valid. It should offer solutions to the problem. So studying the problem should give reliable information. Care should be taken not just to do a brief survey of the problem and just offer a quick fix. It's important that the problem is dealt with completely the first time round. So it must be reliable information, and it must apply to that particular problem. And as I said earlier, the managers must consider their internal and external environments. For example, use a SWOT or a PESTEL. SWOT is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats. There are several videos elsewhere in the course on SWOT. Look at the strengths and the weaknesses, the opportunities and the threats within the business. And PESTEL is more looking outwards at the outside situation, looking at the political environment in which the business is running. the economic, the social, the technological, the legal and the environmental. Looking at all of these components to try and get some idea of what's required of the business and where the business sits in terms of the external environment. The information gathered should help the managers make appropriate judgments and come to the right decisions. It's important that the information that's being gathered about the problem helps the managers fix the problem. Now, devising possible solutions. Well, management need to consider taking action in order to resolve the current problems. They can't just leave the problem. It may get bigger. It may be a drain on resources. It may affect the morale of the workers. It may cause frustration amongst the customers, or the suppliers may feel frustrated as well that they're not getting the same number of orders from the company. So the decision makers should brainstorm alternative solutions, looking at the problem and trying to minimize the effects of the problem on the operation of the business. So you should brainstorm alternative solutions. Don't just come up with one solution, come up with several solutions and then try and rank which one is best, which one will be tried out first. So it's a process of trying to devise different solutions to the problem and thinking through each of the solutions, thinking through logically what the solution proposed means, how effective it's likely to be, what it will cost, what are the benefits of the solution, what are the alternatives to that proposed solution. Now, selecting possible solutions. Well, this part of the model requires the management to analyse each solution by weighing pros and cons in order to arrive at the best possible solution in resolving the problem. So, having various solutions, having identified various solutions, it's important that the management weigh up each of them, try to decide which one is best. This could be, as I said earlier, just a few moments ago, it could be in terms of costs and benefits. It could be the ease of resolving the issue. It could be the cost of resolving it. It could be the resources that are required. So there are many issues to take into account. So it's having got various solutions, it's important to select the right solution. And the best solution is the one that meets the organisational goals and values and favours financial performance with the least amount of resources. So it's the solution that fixes the problem most effectively for the least amount of expenditure. The solution that's selected should have the minimum amount of risk and uncertainty for the organisation. It should not add to the complexity of the organisation. It should resolve the problem and do it in a way which is reduces risk and uncertainty. It enables the business to function effectively and it doesn't cause further problems down the line. Now, next is communicate the decision. Well, once a solution has been identified, it's important to communicate the decision throughout the organisation and the departments. There are stakeholders, the workers, the managers, and then there are the external ones, the suppliers and the customers, the local community, whoever. But it's important, if the issue, the problem was big and it's going to have a big impact on the business, it's particularly important that this is communicated effectively around the business and everyone understands the reason for the solution and understands what the solution will entail. if nothing else, it will affect the morale of the business, it'll affect the motivation of the workers, and it'll also affect the way the business is seen in the way it conducts its communications. And if it's a big decision, if it's a big problem that's been addressed, it may be that the overall objectives of the business need to be reassessed also. They may need to be changed in light of the problem that's arisen and how the problem was fixed and how the solution changed the organisation. So it's important that the staff and the stakeholders know exactly what's going on. And this is particularly true in the case of big problems, big issues and big changes. Next, plan and implement the solution. Well, execute a strategy and devise a plan which can be followed by departments and subordinates. The strategy needs to be put into place. The solution needs to be put into place. And the strategy for putting the solution into place must be agreed upon by the departments and the subordinates. There must be commitment to the solution. If there's a problem and the business has recognized the solution, then the people who are going to fix the problem must agree with it. They must see the logic in the solution. So it's important that they are motivated to successfully implement the solution and resolve the issue. So it's important that they are persuaded to implement the solution effectively and manage the new situation and work under the new conditions. So management needs to be persuasive about how to implement the solution, why the problem needs to be fixed, why the issue is the way it is. And once the solution has been put into place, it's necessary to monitor the solution, monitor the new situation, and discuss with the people affected, discuss on a regular basis with them how the solution is working. So there needs to be good communications with the people directly affected to see if the solution is working. And this, of course, overlaps with leadership and motivation and effective planning. So it's important that the business has got good communication skills, good communications channels. The managers have good communication skills. There are good communications channels with the people directly affected by the solution. Now, evaluate the effectiveness of the solution. Well, issues that were around before the solutions went into place, they need to be removed. The problem needs to be removed. And it's necessary to find out accurately whether the solution is working. It may be that those people affected don't want to go through the process of fixing the problem twice. So they are making do with the situation. It's important that the solution is effective. And to that end, the solution to the problem should be monitored and evaluated critically over a long period of time to make sure that the issue has been resolved. And the results should be accumulated for all departments. Objectives and goals should be reviewed to ensure that the decision made is successful. And if the solution was not successful, not 100% successful, it needs to be reviewed again. It needs to be looked at again. It's important that the business aims for efficiency. and working with a system that's not fully functioning is not ideal. So it's important that the business has routines and processes that are working effectively. And that means problems which have been resolved need to be monitored, and the effectiveness of the solution needs to be evaluated over a long period of time to ensure that it was the right solution and that the people who were directly affected by the solution, the workers or that particular department, are committed to ensuring that the solution is applied effectively. There are two steps involved in this stage: evaluation and feedback. So, evaluation, the decision makers gather all the information necessary to assess whether the decision made was successful. So, the decision makers collect information after the solution has been put into place, after the issue has been resolved. They collect the information and try to assess whether the problem has been resolved, whether the problem has been fixed. Feedback, well, this is vital and should be continuous throughout the decision-making process. Feedback enables the organization to further develop and offer suggestions which restart the decision-making model. So it's important that the people who are directly affected by the problem that has now been fixed, that they should feedback their experience, and they should feedback on how the new situation after the solution was implemented, how the new situation is working, and what tweaks or what adjustments need to be made to make it even more effective. The evaluation process monitors and suggests improvements. This could be to try alternatives or to find solutions. So the evaluation process is constantly looking at the solution that was put into place to see if it was the best solution, if a better solution could not be devised. And this is partly driven by the feedback that the managers receive from the people who are working with that process, from the quality investigations that may be conducted from the output of that process. So they are constantly looking at the data, processing the data into information, and trying to come up with some understanding of how that process is currently working and whether the solution was effective. This class has been looking at very practical issues in decision making. It's not normally the way we look at decision making. We normally look at it in the context of statistics and trying to work out trends and base decisions on trends and so on. This one is looking at decision making in a very practical manner within an organization, and we've looked at one model which gives us an indication of the types of processes, the types of steps we need to undertake in order to make effective decisions. That's all I'm going to do in this session, so I'm going to leave it at that and say thank you for watching.